Hello folks, and welcome to another Sasoi spikeboarding video. Today we are going to see two sports that are intimately related, of course, and we're going to be witnessing them. We're pulling out of the pillars at LookOut Mountain in Golden, Colorado, just outside of Denver. And we are going to review a summit done by the same athlete using two different strokes, but two different strokes that are intimately related. So what you're seeing is double poling right next to stand-up spike. So stand-up spike and double poling are two forms of human propulsion that are very connected because they use very similar tools, and they use the parts of the tools are exactly the same. So let's just start with that. So the skier is on roller skis. If you've never seen roller skis, that is what cross-country skiers worldwide have been doing for 70% of their season for a long time. So roller skiing gets raced. There's World Cup races. It's not in the Olympics yet. They're talking about taking it to the Olympics because snow is disappearing so much that they really want to begin to focus on roller skiing and get the rest of the world to roller ski. 140 nations do not roller ski. They don't ski, they don't arrive to the Olympics. 140 countries do not arrive to the Olympics to participate in cross-country skiing, and roller ski could change all that. So there's ski boots. Those are the same exact ski boots that would be used on snow, and they're clipping into a roller ski, which has a binding and it has a board and wheels at both ends. And then of course you've got the ski pole, which is a shaft. Those are incredibly light, made of carbon fiber. And then you have a strap at the top, and at the bottom is the part that is shared exactly the same as the skateboard spike. But at the bottom of the ski pole is a carbide tip. It's called, the skiers call it a ferrule. A ferrule is a spike. Spike and ferrule, same thing. And as you can see, the skier is driving the vector line to the rear because that's the only way that you can propel yourself on land, especially if you're going uphill. You're never gonna take the poles and forward catch them and pull yourself. You're going to spike to the rear and spike yourself up. As you can see, you're just pounding down that ferrule, that spike, straight into the asphalt, and you're propelling yourself forward. And so going over to the skateboard spike as the tool that the spikeboarding athlete is using, the shaft is very similar, of course, a little thicker. And at the business end of it, at the bottom, is the same exact 2-centimeter carbide tip as the skier's using. The same exact one. So the skateboard spike is inspired and takes away a part that has been used at World Cup for years and years and years. So if you're going to be on a board and you're going to be propelling yourself, the laws of physics, materials, all point to you using a carbide spike tip, and that's what's going to bite into asphalt. No rubber is ever going to do this. So if you think you can perform at these levels with rubber, well then jump on over to World Cup and see how you make out. But I don't think you'll do very well. And of course at the top of the skateboard spike, that's where the device is very different than the ski poles. So as you can see, the ski poles remain one in each hand, and as you can see, the spikeboarding athlete is switching from one side to the other. And because of that, the skateboard spike is designed in a very unique way. And once you get your hands on one, once you begin to practice the sport, you will understand that without a skateboard spike, it is impossible to perform stand-up spike at these performing levels. So could you have just a shaft with a T at the top? Sure, go ahead, try it all you like, but you will have very low performing results. So if you'll notice, that top hand is rotating at the top of that skateboard spike, and without the form that skateboard spike is made, you would have great difficulty in executing the stroke. So it's the same as if you didn't have straps on the ski poles, you wouldn't be performing at such a high level. Also, the grip on the skateboard spike is incredibly unique. Once you get into the sport, you will understand why it's unique and why nobody will ever perform at high levels without it. So that's covering the devices, and now let's get a little bit into the stroke. The stroke, as you can see, let's just pay attention to the arms, and both athletes have arms that are bent at 90 degrees, and the arms are transferring energy down in through the shaft, and the energy and the power is coming up out of the core and the back. The lats and the core are what's driving both these athletes as they go up the mountain. So you're not going to be extending your arms and using a lot of tricep bicep. The arms are just staying locked, and they make a square formation, and via that square formation you're driving all the power from the larger muscle groups in the body. The double poling stroke is much more efficient, and of course the equipment is different in as much as the wheel patch is very different. So the wheel patch and the wheel resistance that's occurring on the skis is way smaller than on that spike board. So a spike board, yes, is a skateboard that's been optimized for spike boarding. So the characteristics of the board are such that it works perfectly well for spike boarding. You want to have your wheels covered. And the board is dropped, and the board also gets used to do another stroke called kubi cross, which requires enough sufficient length to be able to switch your feet. But for now, let's just speak about the wheel patches, and of course the bigger your wheel patch, the more wheel resistance you have. And what it comes down to is that two shafts, one on either side, with your hips at 90 degrees, is going to produce more efficient power transmission than just one shaft. But it's not about what is faster or slower. You could get into the swim strokes, and you could say front crawl is the fastest stroke that there is the only one we should do. So it's a little bit of an apple and an orange there. If you're on roller skis, you're going to double pole. If you're on one board, you're going to want one shaft, trust me. So you could grab two shafts, two ski poles, and jump on a board, and you will quickly discover how unhappy you will be and how very uncasual it is to have two poles. And of course, once you got into a kubi cross, you will realize the redundancy of having two poles. And actually, once you start to carve and go down hills, you will understand how very uncasual it would be to be on one board with two shafts. So remaining with the kinetics, the human movement, we were talking about the arms and how the arms remain at 90 degrees, form a square formation, and derive the power out of the core. And so to do that in stand-up spike, you'll notice that the hips are at 45 degrees to the board. So skier is at 90 degrees and never changing. And the stand-up spike athlete has his hips at 45 degrees to the board. And of course, then that produces a leading shoulder and a leading hip and a leading foot. And You need to unwind just a little bit the core into the spike. What you're trying to do is keep that spike parallel to the board. So as you can see in skiing as well, you're trying to keep the shafts parallel to the boards. For every degree that the shaft goes out to the side, either on the skier or with the spikeboarding athlete, stand-up spike athlete, you're going to lose power. So in skiing, that's done with your hands and the placement of your arms and your shoulders. You want to get your poles up high. You want to keep them at shoulder width. And then you want to, with your hands, keep trying to pull your tips in, because if they start going out, you're going to start just giving away power to the universe. You want to maintain all the power that comes out. You want it to go through the shaft, transfer into the pavement, and get you going forward, turning it into wheel speed. And in stand-up spike, you really want to get that leading shoulder over, leading hip over, and unwind straight into the stroke. So we've covered the gear, and we've covered the strokes. And in regards to compression, waist down, both athletes are going to compress. So if you ever thought that double poling or stand-up spike wasn't a leg workout, then think again, because especially the glutes in skiing are going to be used a little more. And believe it or not, I guess because of the offset 45 degree, the calves in stand-up spike are getting an insane workout, just a crazy workout when you do stand-up spike and stand-up mountains. The calves get just, once you start doing it, you'll understand. This tremendous workout. In the double poling, you're going to feel a great deal of work in the glutes. So of course the legs are supporting everything, and it's the foundation of what everything's seated upon. So when you start to go uphill, they're called upon to work a great deal. And of course, if you wanted to use the legs with different action in spikeboarding, you would jump into a kubi cross stroke, and of course in skiing, those are skate skis, and you would use a skate ski stroke. So for purposes of demonstrating these two strokes side by side, we just went ahead and cut and edited the stand-up spike stroke right next to the double poling stroke, so that you would see that. So speaking a little bit about this mountain, I like to think of it as a Goldilocks mountain. It's not too small and it's not too big. The first time you go up it, it'll kick your butt a little bit, but you start going up it quite a bit, and it'll get smaller and smaller and smaller. It doesn't have anything incredibly vertical that's going to just push you back and get you into a stall type of situation, like Flagstaff over in Boulder, that at the top has a wall near the top that I don't even know if it's stand-up spikeable. I think it'd be double pollable. I think you could double pole it. We'll try to get over there and do just that in the next season or next couple of years, and we'll attempt to try to stand-up spike it. But stand-up spiking is a more laborious stroke than double poling. Double poling is going to be a little faster, and when we get to the end of this video, you'll see this is the same exact mountain, of course. Both athletes are on a different day, and you'll see obviously now the terrain has changed. Just take a peek at how we're editing back and forth. So there's the turn that's right behind the skier at this point, so that spikeboarder is way back there at this point. And so you can see how much ground the skier is gaining on the stand-up spike athlete. This was filmed about 1 year separated. from each other. So first the stand-up spike video was made in 2017, and this double poling video was made in 2018. So maybe there's a little more fitness in the skier at this point than the spikeboarding athlete. But this mountain, is just the right size for skiing up it, and just the right size for spikeboarding up it. This mountain has a tremendous amount of tradition for cycling, and at the bottom you will find a dedicated sculpture of a cyclist. And if you come up here, you'll see so many people riding their bikes up here. So skiing and spikeboarding, of course, intimately related. You can actually think of skiing, you can think of spikeboarding as skiing. So everything that skiing has ever been has been brought to a board and wheels. So you're looking at a skier on boards and wheels. So the tradition of summiting on roller skis in Europe is pretty big. All over northern Italy and Switzerland and France, they have a big tradition of skiing up hills. In Spain as well, up hills, up mountains. And this athlete is also a cyclist, happens to be a person who's raced a bicycle quite a bit. And there's a cyclist coming up and around, one of these many people that do this. And I'm here to tell you that skiing, spikeboarding is just the opposite of cycling. You're just sort of cycling with your upper body, especially when you're watching double poling and stand-up spike. It's very similar to cycling, but you're just engaging your upper body in a very similar way that you would engage your lower body, but your legs are getting a little more work than you might imagine. So in regards to cycling, the upper body gets absolutely no work. So very, very, very little work. Pardon me. Unless, of course, you're doing a little bit of mountain biking, and then the upper body's going to get a lot more work. Or track cycling, you're going to get a little more core engagement. But in open road cycling, there's not all that much happening with the upper body. But if you begin to think of double poling and stand-up spike like cycling, especially when you start to stand up mountains and ski up mountains, you will get into the same headspace. Absolutely. So you'll just begin to find an efficient stroke pattern, and you'll dig into it, and believe it or not, the body will adapt to this load. So however you started cycling and whatever climbs that you went up when you first began, you probably ended up surprised how good you felt after you started to climb mountains on a bicycle. And you didn't start climbing really big, and your body wasn't adapted to it, and it had to come around. Well, this is no different. We in this country, America, we just don't have a custom of working with upper body development, and we don't have in propulsion and human propulsion. So human propulsion for us with upper body is basically swimming, and then a little bit of kayaking and canoeing and water sports, but that's not nationalized very much at all. So what we have nationalized is cycling. What we have nationalized is running and triathlon. So nobody is freaked out or made to seem strange when they think of tri. And when you get into swimming and you get into open water swimming, you discover, wow, I really need a lot of upper body, and it's a constant, steady stroke pattern. So you can also think of double poling and stand-up spiking, very similar to swimming. So if you've got a swimming mindset and you do open water swims, or you do swims, say 1,500 meters twice a day or even once a day, and big workouts in a pool, just approach double poling and stand-up spiking up mountains as if you were going to a pool and you were just going to begin to use your upper body. Also, climbers, rock climbers. Rock climbers, we don't think of it too much, but it's a sport that transports. So you are in one place And via your climbing, you're going to be transported up a certain amount of distance, and you're going to finish at point B. So anything that goes point A to point B with human propulsion is indeed a transport sport. So climbers, you know fully well what it means to go from point A to point B and solve your problems and climb up mountains. And you know the speeds at which you go, which can be rather slow. And that also helps you get into a mindset of human propulsion up mountains. But standing up mountains, skiing up mountains, I will tell you, will reward you to no end. It will feel fantastic. And the tradition of standing up mountains and skiing up mountains is one that could also serve high school, middle school athletes like crazy. So coaches, if you're watching this, consider skiing, double pole skiing up mountains and stand-up spiking up mountains as a routine that you could get your athletes into, say once or twice a week or a month. Really depends on the development. So if you were to stand up spike or double pole this mountain twice a month, toss everybody into a van. This is about a 40-50 minute workout. Depends whether you're skiing. It's going to be skiing or double poling. The difference is, it's about 8 minutes or so. So that kind of load time is not that long. It is not that long. So sometimes people look at the double poling and the stand-up spiking and they say, oh my goodness, oh, this is the most boring thing in the world. You hear them belly aching. One, they've never done it. And two, they might even run marathons. Your typical American marathon runner is running at about 4.5 hours, 3.5 hours. So who runs a marathon 3:30? I know I don't. Well, I don't run at all because the running injuries have devastated me. So 3.5, let's just call it 3.5 hours. This is a fast marathon. Again, leg propulsion, American leg propulsion in sport, people really understand it and they're okay with it. So the body doesn't know what's popularized and what's not popularized. The body is the body, and you've either applied load in an even-handed way and you're not lopsided. And that's the wonderful thing about triathlon, is it not, right? It's just head to toe. It's covering every single bit of you, mostly because of the swimming. Because you remove the swimming and all you have is running and cycling, and now you have a lopsided athlete. And of course, that's the beautiful thing about cross-country skiing. Cross-country skiing is the sport of gods, people. It is super comprehensive, and it is the swimming of human propulsion. And of course, what's happened is that everything that cross-country skiing has ever been, this is the second time I'm saying this, has been brought to a board and made incredibly casual. So the casual quality of spikeboarding, stand-up spike, make it so that you could jump on a board, grab a skateboard spike, dress in street clothes, get a little core right out your door, and get yourself to a gym, to your friend's house, to school, or to work. So roller skiing is beautiful, it's wonderful, but it will probably always remain in a place that is athletic and sports driven. More than likely, you're not going to double pole or roller ski yourself to work. You might, if you have optimal conditions. I mean, I would roller ski every day if everything in the social design system was set up so that it would be optimal. But when we get into terrain, into wheels, roller ski wheels are delicate, and they are very they react to rough pavement and rocks in a wholly different way than boards do. Board wheels react just completely differently. They're going to roll over so much more than what roller ski wheels can roll over. And when you're on a board and you get some turbulence, you just get to the back of the board, and the board is going to roll over whatever it is that's there. And in roller skis, not so much. It's going to be a little bit more of a challenge. And of course, when you arrive, you're going to have boots on, you're going to have poles, and you're going to have one leg going this way, one leg going that way. Look, learn both sports, because ultimately, someday, you're going to also want to get to snow ski. And if you want to snow ski, nothing replaces technique. There's no spikeboarding in snow. You're never going to use any kind of shaft on a snowboard. That'd be the most ridiculous thing in the world. Just would never work out for you. Snowboards are forever going to be going into the split board camp, where you're just going to split your board, and then you can have some poles, because now you have independent leg action. But you're never going to be on a single board using a single shaft on snow. It's just not going to happen. So you do want to learn to cross-country ski. And skiing, folks, is skiing. And what I mean by that is, whether you're an alpine skier or whether you're a cross-country skier on snow, roller skiing is going to help you a great deal. Let us not forget that the number one killer, the number one death incident in alpine skiing, downhill skiing, is because people show up and they're not fit, and they go to altitude and they have a heart attack. Cardiac arrest kills more alpine skiers than anything else. And roller skiing is gonna help that, of course, and so will spikeboarding. So if you're living in Kansas City and you're living in St. Louis or Ohio, and you're coming to the Colorado Rockies, or you're going to Vermont to ski, and you're showing up and you're not fit, then it's not going to be a happy day for you. And you might not die of a heart attack, but the more fit you are, the more days you're going to ski, and the more fun you're going to have skiing. So skiing is skiing. 2 poles and skis on your feet. Ski what's out your door. And of course, roller skiing is a challenge, and that's what's lovely about spikeboarding. So if you haven't noticed yet, cross-country skiers, many times when you see them on snow, they're just kind of walking across, say, a frozen lake or a flat patch, and there's not that much engagement. It's basically because these kinds of people have grown up with skiing, perhaps, and they're on skiing. They think they're skiing, but they never learn the technique, and they're actually walking on skis. So, and forget about going up a mountain or even a hill. They don't have the fitness for it. But I'm not taking anything away from those kinds of people. They're out there, and they're moving blood through their body. That's fantastic. But they may or may never, get on roller skis, because roller skis a huge challenge. And the more you're going to ski, the more you're going to ski. That's why I say skiing is skiing. So for all those people that are just walking on snow, we want to get you onto roller skis. And of course, roller skis, when you do start skiing on flats and going down hills a little bit on rollers, it's a challenge, and it's a challenge that can be helped by learning to stand-up spike and spikeboard and mixing the two sports together. Because when you begin on roller skis, it's a challenge, and it doesn't stop being a challenge for quite some time. It actually never stops being a little bit more of a challenge than it is fun. But the fun part about great challenges is that you achieve them. So it's a little bit like swimming butterfly. If you swim butterfly, you're going to feel really good, and it's going to be really achievement fun. You're going to say, hey, I swim butterfly, and that's not so simple. So it's a little bit like rock climbing. It's taxing, it's challenging in a very achievement kind of way, and that's the way roller skiing is all the time. But the way spikeboarding has just inherently a little more, how shall we say, joy to it. So that's just casual, without any judgment. I don't say this with any judgment, because if I want to go roller skiing, I'm going to go roller skiing. And roller skiing, again, delivers this realization that you've mastered the technique of roller skiing, because roller skiing technique is so much more challenging than spikeboarding technique, because I'd say you'd need, say, 2 or 3 times the navigational skill set that you need in spikeboarding. Spikeboarding has a 10-inch board, and you're standing on it, and the balance requirement is far less than being on roller skis. So roller skis, your heels are not connected to these boards. These boards are very skinny and they're very tippy, and finding the exact position on top of them so that you're balanced is way more challenging than being on a board. And as I say that, notice how I don't say hard. So it's challenging. Challenges are good. So what's interesting, if we look at challenging in the sporting world, what's become very popular in the last, say, decade. So Spartan races. And yeah, it's a challenge, but let's be real, people. How long is that gonna be in your life? How often is it in your life? I'm gonna go Spartan this afternoon. I'm gonna go crawl in the mud, and we're gonna chit chat when we go. So that's just it's not tenable over a long lifetime. If you like Spartan, go do Spartan. Sure. Are you gonna do it for 20 years? I doubt it. Are you going to roller ski for 20 years? I know that you will, once you learn it. Are you going to spikeboard for 20 years? Absolutely. Over and over and over again. What people who've gone to Spartan, what they're sort of staving off or putting off is the fact that there are already challenges. So they think, oh, Spartan's challenge. Well, it's a military obstacle course. Of course it's a challenge. And physically, yeah, they're super well suited to take people to combat. So you need to get fit for combat, and it needs to have some cross-training aspect to it. But get this, everybody needs to be able to do it. So, and they need to do it quickly. So within 3 or 6 months, everyone needs to be able to go through it. And that's what military obstacle courses are. But the original challenge, the original Spartan, the full body dominator of the world, is cross-country skiing. So if you had a situation where all the athletes of the world were going to disappear in a Noah's Ark sort of situation, and you needed to gather up, say, 200 athletes, 100 male and 100 female, so that then you could recreate all of the athletes, the gymnasts, everybody, the cyclists, the baseball players, the basketball players, and the wrestlers, and you genetically were going to then grab just one athlete who possessed all the skill sets that a body would need, you would grab the cross-country skiers. Why? Because they have the highest levels of strength, endurance, and balance all mixed together, and they're firing full body. That's it. That's what you have to contend with in this life. It is a sport of gods. You could grab the swimmers. Sure, you could grab the swimmers, but the swimmers wouldn't have balance, would they? They wouldn't have a highly developed neurological system of left and right balance and weight transfer left to right. And of course, spikeboarding is a simplified form of cross-country skiing mixed with skating aboard. Skating aboard over a center line. So, and the fact is, with cross-country skiing, skating arrived to cross-country skiing in 1984 and 1985. So the skate ski stroke was introduced into skiing, and it became the fastest way to ski on snow with skating. So skating had a big influence on the skating movement, had a big influence on cross-country skiing. And now, of course, the skateboard spike, the hand tool that makes it happen, and of course the Kubi Cross and the stand-up spike now bring a very big influence into skiing. Because if you begin to spikeboard, you have everything in your toolbox that will prepare you for the more challenging sport of roller skiing. And now let's just say that you've learned both sports. Well, I'm here to tell you that they cross-train incredibly well. I mean, incredibly well. So you come off of a roller ski session and you want to have a really, really, really nice cool down, and you want your body to keep moving just a little bit more, and then try to shake off all of that hard effort that you've done on roller skis. Go spikeboarding for 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and just easy and casual, and you will just shed away all of the effort that you just did in roller skiing. And the opposite is true. If you've been out spikeboarding and you want to begin to cross train and develop more powerful upper body throughout, completely every part of it, all part of your 90-degree arm, well, then go double pole and go cross country ski and go diagonal stride, because there's shoulder muscles that are not exactly the same and back muscles that are not exactly the same between stand-up spike and double pole. So you can't be a stand-up spike athlete and then out of the blue say, hey, I'm gonna go double pole Lookout Mountain. Nay, nay, nay. They aren't exactly the same. They are very, very close siblings, kinetically speaking, but every sport requires specificity and the development of muscle. And of course, what's wonderful about cross training with stand-up spike and double poling is that parts of the core are entirely differently engaged, and parts of the shoulders and the arms also, they're just very different. So if you can begin to cross train between the two of them, you're going to benefit a great deal. And before you pass any judgment, you might think about actually doing it, because this athlete began spikeboarding and then began to cross-country roller ski. So if you haven't done something, it's very difficult to pass judgment. So if you'd never swam before and you'd never swam butterfly and all you did was swim front crawl, it would seem illogical that you would actually pass any kind of judgment whatsoever on butterfly until such time as you actually swam butterfly. So the skier is beginning. We're in the upper parts of this summit now. The skier is 1 or 2 turns away from the top. There'll be a freeze frame when he does reach there, and then the continuation of the stand-up spike summit will go on, and you'll be able to see on the time code that time difference, and that is what we'd spoken about, that the double pole stroke is more efficient for extracting power. It's faster. So think of it very much just like freestyle swimming. Front crawl, otherwise known as front crawl, is the fastest way to swim in water. And then just think of breaststroke is a little bit slower. It's just as noble a stroke, and included in the Olympic family, 4 strokes of swimming. That's how you ought to think about these two things. So, and that's very similar in swimming. You've done a big swim workout with freestyle, and your cool down usually ends up being any other stroke besides the stroke that you were doing. So swim coaches know that full well. And of course, the same can apply here. This is a beautiful little mountain. It's really sensational to do roller skiing and spikeboarding. So we encourage you to take a peek at some of our tutorials. And you don't start right with mountains, but you can get into them. You can get into climbing rather quickly, but certainly your body's going to have to begin to develop before you start standing up mountains. So here is close to the top. I think it's going to be the top for the skier, if I remember correctly. Around this corner, hands are up. Yeah, things are looking a little bit flat there. Yep, there it is. There was the summit for the double pole and the skier, and back here, and the stand-up spike athlete is still doing some work here toward the top. And the front range is right there behind them. It's beautiful pictures here. You can't get more Colorado than this. Sensational area. Denver is such a perfect area for spikeboarding. and roller skiing that it's not even funny. So this athlete lives in New York City, New York. And in New York is a crazy good place for spikeboarding as well. They have Storm King Mountain 50 miles away, as well as the Palisades Cliffs, which has got a great 1 mile climb just outside of the city. And for all you people who live in pan flat areas, well, we'll start gearing up some individual time trial runs that are going to excite you as much as climbing. So these sports are very similar to cycling. If it's pan flat, then you're going to lay out individual time trials. That's what you're going to be into. And if you've got climbing, well, you're going to climb mountains. And we climb mountains. Everything climbs mountains. Every sport that can go up mountains goes up mountains. And therein lay the innovation of spikeboarding. Once you realize, hey, there's roller skiing. Yes, there's roller skiing. And what do they use? Oh, they use a carbide spike tip at the bottom of their shafts, and they climb big 15 kilometer climbs. So, well, what are roller skis? Well, they are boards and wheels. And of course, the board and wheels, known as the skateboard, has finally arrived, very similar to a bicycle on the road arriving to the edge of the woods and becoming mountain biking. Of course, it's obvious, right? So folks, here we are at the top, making our last turn with the stand-up spike athlete. Hope you've enjoyed this demonstration of double pole roller skiing right next to stand-up spike and standing up mountains. And remember guys, ski hard, ski often, and spike hard, spike often. Spikeboarding, the sport of balance, strength. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one.